This episode may contain content of a graphic nature, including descriptions of physical and sexual violence against adults, children, and animals. Listener discretion is advised. Hi everyone, I'm Talia.
And I'm Tanya.
And together we are Crimes and Consequences, a true crime podcast. Hi everyone, welcome to Crimes and Consequences. My name is Talia, and this is my lovely co-host, Tanya.
Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back. We have a great story, and we're thrilled to be on True Crime Daily. Thank you for everybody that has supported us. This story that we're getting into is a Michigan story. It's one that I dealt with actually kind of on the peripheral of when I was working at the Attorney General's office a long time ago.
Yeah, ages ago. Not that long.
Not that long. If you haven't done so already, subscribe, follow, like us, join our Patreon, patreon.com/TNT Crimes. You can get many more episodes just like this. But with that said, are you ready for some true crime?
I am. Let's get into it.
This one's bad. This one's rough.
Oh.
It's got some nasty things, and it was a cold case, which I love cold cases.
I love when cold cases are solved.
And it's solved.
Yes.
So let's get into it.
Spoiler alert.
It's solved. This is about the terrifying Duval brothers. And I'm going to go through the whole family because it's pretty scary. There's 7 of them. But the focus of the story is about the victims. And I want to be clear. There were 2, David Till and Brian Ogden. These were 2 best friends. They met each other in 4th grade, and they were close ever since. They lived in the Detroit area of Michigan. And so you have in Michigan, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but we have what's called deer hunting season.
Oh, yeah. It's very popular.
Very, very popular. I mean, on average, we get 800,000 people coming over for deer hunting season. So in this case, it went cold for 18 years as to what happened to David and Brian during the hunting season. And I'm going to explain to you what happened, but I want to give you some background on them. So it takes place in November of 1985. And as I said, they met in 4th grade. They had this trip that they would do yearly with some family members, and they would go up north because everybody goes up north. Michigan's a mitten, and they would go like up north hunting.
And up north is pretty much, to me, anything north of Detroit.
Anything, yes. And so David Till, he was a machinist, and he lived in Troy, Michigan, which is not far from where we are right now. And Brian Ogden, forgive me. I'm so horrible with names. I apologize. Ogden. He lived in St. Clair Shores, which they're not that far from each other. And he was a mechanic. David got married when he was 19, and Brian was single, but he was dating a woman named Janice. And originally, these 2 friends were going to go to a place called White Cloud, Michigan. They were going to go there. And for those that aren't familiar with Michigan, it's here. White Cloud's here. Let's go with it.
Okay. Yep.
And that's a very touristy area. The western part of Michigan is very touristy.
Because you have Lake Michigan and people love to go, to the lakes and everything.
And that's where David Tills, he had a cabin. And his family, they had a cabin there too. He had a brother named Matt. They were going to meet up with Matt and David's dad and some friends. And what guys do is they just have a lot of drinks, a lot of hunting. And it's just like...
Probably a lot of good food, I would think.
Guys' time.
I've never done it.
It's guys' time.
Guys' time.
It's guys' time. So we are on the weekend of November 22nd, 1985. David went to Brian's house to pick up Brian. And they were going to drive together in David's Bronco. He got there around 2 o'clock and Brian was sleeping because Brian often worked nights or worked late. And so Brian wasn't awake. It took him a little bit of time to get ready. And they were getting ready to go to White Cloud. But they had this mutual friend named Dennis. And Dennis, he lived, if you're looking at the mitten, okay, he lived on the other side of where White Cloud would be. And they decided they would meet up with Matt at David Till's cabin, family cabin, maybe the next day in White Cloud. But they were going to go to a place called Mayo and meet their friend Dennis. And Dennis, this is back in the day when there were no Google,
right? It's
anything.
85, yeah.
And Dennis had written a map to get there. And to give you a little idea of Mayo has a population of 2,000 people.
Oh, very small.
Very, very tiny. It's in Ascata County. It's got one stoplight.
Oh, in the whole county?
In the whole county.
Or the city?
No, the whole county.
The whole county has
entire
one stoplight?
Yes,
Wow.
in my notes, because I did this case, one stoplight in the whole county. So that tells you. And it's very beautiful, but it's not a touristy area. It has more poverty because it's not the touristy area.
Yeah, I've never been there, but I've driven through it, like past it.
It's very beautiful, but for some reason, the west side is where people end up going in Michigan. They actually leave about 5 o'clock. Right before they leave, David calls his brother, and they don't have cell phones, keep in mind. And so he calls from Brian's house, and he says, you know what, we might not make it there till Saturday. Okay. And they decide to go see their friend Dennis. And when they went to do that, I should say this. Dennis didn't actually draw the map. A guy named David Jacob did. He made the map. And he left out a major highway.
Oh, no.
He forgot to put in M33. But somehow they made it to Mayo. And they found a bar called Walker's Bar and Bowling Alley. And they went and they had some drinks. At Walker's Bowling Alley, they met somebody, and there's a lot of Davids. So they met a guy named David Welch. And we'll just call him Welch. And they asked David basically, hey, where is a place to have a good time around here? But they're in Mayo. I mean, it's like...
Yeah, that is probably the place to have a good time, right?
The bowling alley. They wanted to maybe just hang out, party, flirt with some women, you know. And Mr. Welch told them the bowling alley is not the place to be.
Oh, I was wrong.
No, there was a place down the road. And Brian went to the place down the road while David stayed. And the place was called Northwood Gardens. And while Brian was there, he saw some ladies and he was flirting with them. This is according to the people that worked there. And he wrote something down on a piece of paper and handed it to a woman. We don't know what he wrote down, but she didn't like it.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And they got up and left. And Brian felt pretty jaded. So he went back to see David and Mr. Welch at the Walker's Bar and Bowling Alley. By that time, David Till was intoxicated. And that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, that's what they're up there for. That's okay.
Yeah, it's good, guys.
I am not judging him. And they're still trying to find their friend Dennis. Like, where does Dennis live? And they stopped someone they saw, and they asked him, "Do you know Dennis?" Because it's a small town. And the guy was like, "No." But he said, "You'd have a better chance of finding him if your map wasn't upside down."
Oh, oh no. Whoops.
I've been there.
Yeah. I'm horrible with directions, actually. I mean, terrible. Thank God GPS was invented, and now I still get lost occasionally. I mean, I'm bad.
And this guy did notice that they had an empty 12-pack of beer in the Bronco. So they were drinking on the way. And they're in Mayo. They're hanging out. No one knows what's on the note. They end up, honestly, they end up getting shit-faced. They laughed about the fact that the map was upside down. I mean, they're in the boondocks. And they end up crashing somewhere. I don't know where. But when it came Saturday morning, they were really hungover.
Oh.
Really hungover. So they went back to the bowling alley. And they kind of nursed their hangover at the bowling alley. And they made some jokes about how they felt like crap. That was pretty close to the last sighting of them, but not completely. But that's one of the last times they interacted with people. So they're nursing their hangover, and I think they're doing it. What's the name where what is it?
The hair of the dog or something?
The hair of the dog.
Yeah.
They ended up going to a place called Linkers. And they were at Linkers, and some people accused them of grabbing a girl's butt. Her name was Barb. It was actually Brian that allegedly grabbed Barb's butt. And then there was accusations that David Till, while Barb was playing pool, rubbed up against her. I don't know if any of that is true, but I mean, she claimed she was leaning over the pool table playing pool, and she didn't like how he was being so flirty. One of the workers at Linkers, it's called Linkers Lost Linkers Lost Lodge.
And that's why we haven't said the whole the whole name.
Her name was Cindy. And Cindy said they came in and that they were kind of being a bit obnoxious because they were intoxicated. At one point, David Till tried to pay the bill, and Brian said to Cindy, "If you let him pay the bill, I'm going to smack you." But I'm sure he was just joking around. And that's pretty much one of the last recorded times they were seen. David Till's wife, Sunday night, became really worried because they were supposed to be back. He had work on Monday, and he was always very punctual, and he didn't come back. And so she contacted the police the next morning on Monday. I mean, she was concerned. And then she called the family, and the family said, they never made it to White Cloud.
Then I would be like, oh no.
Right?
Something happened.
Oh, shit. And so they started searching for these guys. And when I say searching, they hired helicopters to look for them. They were concerned that maybe they never made it. Maybe they had a car accident on the way, because they don't even know that they made it to Mayo because they never found Dennis.
Oh, that's right.
So they have no idea, where they're at. And like I said, Matt's like, they never made it to White Cloud. Then their first assumption was a car accident. It's got to be a car accident because it's a lot of back roads. It's winter. It's November.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
And so that's what they thought. Eventually, with the help of friends, and they contacted the police, they realized that they did make it to Mayo. But you have to remember, Mayo and this whole area goes from having like 2,000 people population to 800,000 people coming in. So there's this influx of men. I mean, let's be honest, they're mostly men. And it was really hard to pinpoint exactly where Brian and David were. And there were a couple of people that thought they saw him there. But this case ended up being cold for 18 years. They just vanished, disappeared. The Bronco that David drove never was found. Let me tell you something I failed to mention to you about the town of Mayo. That is where the Duval brothers live. Scary Duval brothers. And there's a lot of them. There's 7. So I'm going to go from what I described as the least offensive and kind of work our way up into the more interesting characters in the family. The Duval brothers were the proud offspring of Raymond Duval Sr. and his wife, Shirley. She went by Worley. So there were 7 Duval brothers and 1 daughter named Sissy. The youngest of the Duval brothers, his name was Kenny. And let me give you a little insight into Kenny, because he's the baby of the family.
Right.
You don't want to be the baby of the Duval brothers.
Oh, no.
When Kenny was little, for fun, the Duval brothers tied him up with rope and hoisted him onto a tree and left him there. Just for shits and giggles.
You know, yeah. Torture your younger brother, I guess, is hilarious.
He was arrested in 1983 for spousal abuse, stalking his wife, breaking and entering, and at that time, he was smoking crack.
Oh, boy. Okay.
He ended up getting clean in his defense, and he started a company called You Call, We Haul.
Oh, that's a great name.
Right?
Yeah.
And he enjoyed taking apart cars. Then there was Tommy. He also went by Worm.
Do they all have nicknames? Pretty much.
A lot of them do.
A lot of them do.
Worm. And I don't want you to be confused later because there's another person with the nickname Worm.
Are you kidding me?
Schworm the Worm.
Schworm the Worm.
Okay.
It's a popular nickname, apparently.
I don't have a lot of information on Tommy. And I don't really need a lot. It's fine. Next, we have Frank. Frank was arrested and convicted for criminal sexual conduct.
Oh, no.
In an incident with his friend's 15-year-old daughter.
Yeah, criminal sexual conduct is underaged victims.
Yeah, he was 32.
Michigan. Ooh.
And he was an habitual offender. I don't know exactly what all his offenses were. But he had warrants all over the place for him. And he once yelled out, "All I did was transport the bodies."
Oh. That's all. Just, you know.
So that's Frank.
Okay.
Now we have Randy. Randy was able to scrap. This is what he's known for. 6.5 cars from January 1st to May 23rd. Like, quickly. I don't know if it's scrap competition.
What?
I don't know. I don't know if it's bragging rights. I don't know. But that was one of the things he was known for, being able to scrap a car really fast.
Okay, well.
And he was seen driving a Bronco.
Uh-oh.
He helped Kenny start a legitimate business. And so some of the Duval brothers moved to Monroe County.
Oh, that's south, like Toledo border. I mean,
Yes.
Ohio border.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So you have some up here and then some down here trying to make a legitimate life.
I guess you got to get away from Mayo, probably.
I'm guessing. Randy and Kenny ended up putting missing flyers for the hunters at their business.
Okay.
Okay. Now we have Rex, also known as Rexy.
Oh, sexy Rexy.
No.
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 Rexy had lots of pigs.
Oh, no.
He had a favorite pig.
He had a favorite pig?
And he let that favorite pig stay in their house.
Are we talking like Little tiny pigs? Are we talking about
we're talking
like
about
big
a pig?
old, like,
a pig. He
big
had a
old
pig.
farm pigs?
He had a big old farm pig.
Okay, those pigs, they're huge. I don't know if have you seen one in real life?
Yes, I have seen a pig in real life.
I'm a city
Of course,
girl,
I've seen
right?
a pig in real life.
Well, girl, some people don't get out to the country and to farms.
I've seen a pig.
They're huge. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, he had a favorite pig, and that pig was able to stay in his house and pretty much run things.
The pig ran. I'm sorry. Okay.
He had the run of the house.
Yeah. It wasn't a little pig like on Green Acres, right?
Oh, no.
Little Arnold. I remember that show. So anyway.
Okay, we are digressing.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Rex had a daughter, and she shared some stories later about when her uncles would come over. They would go to the basement, and she would hear chainsaws.
What?
And they would come back from the basement with 5-gallon buckets filled with red raw meat. And they would go feed their pigs because there were more pigs.
Okay.
Rex had a wife named Sharon, and they had an abandoned bus in their backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know what they kept in the bus?
No.
13 pigs.
The pigs lived in the bus?
Yes.
13 of them?
Yes.
Okay, buses aren't that big.
Okay, well, I don't know. You can have how many kids?
Yeah. But kids, okay, you're right.
I don't know. Maybe they cleared it out. I am just reporting. Okay. I did
Why are they
a lot
living
of
in the
research.
bus?
well, they got you. I don't know what they're living. Okay. Can we just move on?
It was a rhetorical question. I'm sorry. I'm really like stuck on these pigs. Okay. Anyway, back to the story.
We're pretty sure Rex had something to do with the disappearance of the hunters, just so you know. But Rex died.
When?
He passed away in 2012.
Okay.
I have his obituary.
Oh, all right. Let's hear it.
He was an avid outdoorsman who appreciated his vacation time.
Who doesn't? Girl, I love my vacation time.
I think he was unemployed. I'm not trying to be rude. But
his whole life was vacation
probably
time.
A perpetrator in this case. And yes, he liked horseshoes, fishing, boating, hunting, turtle trapping, and NASCAR. And that's it.
That was his obituary?
Oh, yeah. And then in their obituary, they wrote that he was a bit bullheaded at times. He
must have been real stubborn.
Please don't write that on my obituary. Just say nice things. You don't have to be honest.
I think obituaries should be honest.
Really?
Yes.
She was a bitch sometimes.
Yeah, she was a real pain in the ass.
Well, if they're writing he was a bit bullheaded.
He was a lot bullheaded.
He was very bullheaded.
Right.
So who raised these wonderful boys? Well, we'll get to that. But I do have to mention another particular boy, JR. When JR was 13, he's his dad's namesake, Raymond. Raymond.
Oh, Junior, JR.
Raymond
I get it.
JR. It's kind of sad. He saw his dad beating Worley.
Oh.
And he was beating the shit out of Worley. So he grabbed a gun, a .22, and he shot his dad.
At 13?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Both his dad and mom had to go to the hospital, and they both survived. And then he didn't get in trouble because the police said it's self-defense. And it kind of was a joke in the family about Raymond Sr. beating Worley.
Oh.
In fact, one of the jokes made was that 2 of her boys were born with black eyes.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Isn't that horrible?
Yes, that's horrible.
It's horrible.
That just gives you like an idea of what this family is like, right?
And that was kind of a trend with all the brothers. They enjoyed beating up women. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about JR, okay. Raymond Jr. He was born November 11th, 1950. He got married as a teenager and he went to Vietnam and he served our country. He was part of the military police. He had a string of failed marriages and he had a bunch of different kids. One he named Doobie.
No. No.
I love saying Doobie. You know,
Doobie,
I
yes.
do like saying Doobie. Yeah, Doobie. Okay. And then he had Tom. Doobie was later interviewed during an investigation to see what he might know and, any involvement with what happened with the hunters. He was only 17 when he was interviewed, and he was in the county youth home being held for criminal sexual assault, along with other charges.
Wonderful.
And in 1998, he became a homicide suspect. There was a body found on the railroad tracks in Monroe.
Mm-hmm.
And as I told you, the Duval brothers, they hang out in Monroe County, and then they're in Mayo. A man his body was put on the railroad tracks. And they first thought it was suicide, but then it appeared to be murder linked to Doobie. Doobie talked about his violent childhood and how he was raped by some male relatives.
Oh, no.
Which is sad.
Yeah, that's terrible.
When he was 11, he started doing drugs.
Probably, yeah, to deal with the trauma.
Right. And he said, basically, my family is straight out of a movie. And do you know what movie he described?
I have a guess.
What?
Deliverance?
Yes. Yes.
Yikes. Yikes.
He did.
That's very scary.
So Doobie was JR's son. And I haven't completely gotten into JR. And then he has a son, Tom. Tom would strangle and beat his girlfriend. And one time, he went by Tommy, thought his girlfriend was getting out of control in 1997. And now remember, this story took place in 1985. He told his dad, go ahead and tell my girlfriend what we do to women. And his dad said, we've killed before and we'll kill again.
Oh, wow. Terrifying.
Yeah. JR had a girlfriend. Her name was Eileen for 10 years. And they had 2 children. They lived on a dirt road in a shack with a dirt floor.
Wow. In 1985.
Mm-hmm. And it's sad because it was basically a hut. And it got really cold. And they would talk about how cold it was. I mean, and all the information. And I got a lot of my information from this book called Darker Than Night by Tom Henderson. He is a local writer, and he wrote a great book on this. JR's girlfriend, Eileen, and him were together for, like I said, almost 10 years. And he would beat her all the time. Eileen was with him when the hunters died. And she moved out on her own eventually. She's like,
yeah,
I'm out. And she married a guy named Nelson Boltzmann. Okay. Eileen didn't do much better with Nelson.
Ugh.
Nelson ended up being charged with her murder.
Oh, no.
In 1985.
Wow.
He was charged in Macomb County, which is where we live.
Yes.
And he wrote a letter to the Macomb County prosecutor. And in his letter, he stated that he was wrongly convicted and that she was murdered by the Duvall brothers because she knew too much about the unsolved disappearance of David and Brian.
Oh.
And that she was murdered because of that information. And everybody agrees that Eileen probably had a lot of information, but they don't agree that the Duval brothers killed her. Let me tell you why.
Well, they were probably people you could easily pin a murder on, right?
Right.
I mean, they don't sound like they're angels by any means. And so it was probably easy for him to be like, it wasn't me.
Well, I got the court case for Nelson.
Okay.
His murder case. And here's some evidence to show you kind of why he did it. They were on a canoe trip. Nelson was with Eileen. Witnesses saw them arguing in a pickup truck. The next morning, her body was found on the road 1 block from the home that they'd been staying at. They were staying at like a friend's house. She was beaten. She was strangled with Nelson's shirt wrapped around her neck.
Come on.
And he was found sleeping, passed out drunk, 100 yards away in his truck from her body.
So they were not at their house usually, right? They were off on a canoe trip. So the Duval brothers supposedly tracked her down on this canoe trip.
Yes.
And strangled her
somehow
with
got
his shirt.
Nelson's.
Yes. Okay.
And he had threatened earlier that day to kill her.
Oh.
And he had a history of choking and beating her. And only a few hours before her death, in front of other people, he said he was going to kill her. So,
I mean,
you can judge for yourself.
Yeah.
But he's in prison. So let's go back to when JR was with Eileen. They had somewhere between 6 and 13 pigs.
Okay.
Don't get hung up on the pigs.
I'm not. I'm past it.
JR is an alcoholic. He had lots of outstanding warrants for his arrest, and he didn't ever pay child support. He had some DUIs. There's this very interesting story about JR. He was part of a motorcycle gang. Interesting. I don't really know how I'm going to say it all.
Oh, great.
But I'm
and be YouTube friendly. Okay.
Okay. Yes. So he hung out with these motorcycle buddies. And on a dare, he ate pig shit. Okay. And he never denied it.
Just on a dare? Like, not even for money? I mean, not that I would do it, but I'm just saying. Okay, go on.
It's also believed that he kissed a pig's genitals for $5.
Oh, well, at least he made money there.
Stop it.
Sorry.
And eventually, not to go too forward, but there's testimony from another brother who said, my brother had a pet pig and it came in and out and did whatever it wanted to do, more or less. And it backed its ass up against a wood stove and it burned its privates. That's not the word he used. And that was a direct quote from court testimony. JR spoke about it in court, and he said he passed out near the pig pen, and when he woke up, the pig's private parts were in his face. But others have said that for $5, he kissed the pig's private parts. And he was teased about it all the time.
Yeah, so sounds hilarious.
It's a great
to me.
story.
Yeah,
right?
Great story. Gosh.
So I've left out one brother, Coco. His name was Donald.
I was going to say what's Coco?
But he went by Coco.
Okay.
1952, he was born. He got married to a woman named Georgia. The first year they were married, he broke her jaw.
Wow.
And he broke her nose. And when he was asked later on how he made a living, he said, firewood and welfare.
Oh, perfect.
He got divorced in 1976, and he got to keep the dogs, the pigs, and the chickens, and he had cows running around in his backyard. He was an alcoholic, but he did not do drugs. There's a story of Coco and JR.
Oh, I can't wait for this.
One time they went to a party, and they decided at the party to fight each other for fun.
Okay. I'm going to beat the shit out of my brother for fun.
During the fight, Coco breaks JR's nose. And blood squirts everywhere. JR says, time out. We need to reschedule this for tomorrow.
Reschedule.
My nose is all fucked up. It's true. That's how the events were described. Coco says, okay, tomorrow at noon.
High noon.
They've got it. So they get there, and JR says, okay, there's just one rule. You can't punch me in the nose.
Okay.
Because you just broke it.
So where's the first place he punches him?
See, guess where Coco punches him?
Of course.
In the nose.
Of course, you want to win the fight, don't you? You got to take out your opponent's weakness. I mean, he should have just never said anything.
So every 4th of July, the Duvalls would have a 4th of July pig roast. You know, they have beer and guns, and they'd kill a pig. And there'd be lots of fireworks. In fact, some people blew off fingers.
Oh, boy.
But are you surprised?
No.
But at one time, it ended up there wasn't going to be enough meat. And this is a true story.
A whole ass pig and there's not enough meat?
Not enough meat.
Okay.
I don't know. They got a lot of friends. I don't know. So Rex, JR, and Rex's mom, Whirly, they get into a Jeep. And they're driving around, and they spot a neighbor's cow.
Don't tell me.
They stop the truck. They shoot the cow in the head. And then JR took a chainsaw.
What?
Right then and there, and cut the cow in half on the field. And then they loaded it up and brought it back to the party.
Wow. I'd be so pissed if I was the neighbor.
That's a true story.
Damn.
The Duvalls had a really close friend named Sherm.
Oh, this is Sherm the Worm?
Sherm the Worm, yes. And he was a very scary guy, too. A man named David Henry Johnson told investigators that one time Sherm the Worm was in a store. And David Henry Johnson's wife was there. Her name was Kimberly. And he pushed her up against the wall and started mumbling something about killing pigs. This is at a grocery store.
Yeah.
And then he put his hands on her and said he could rape her whenever he wanted. And there was nothing she could do about it. David Henry Johnson confronted Sherm the Worm. And that's when Sherm the Worm said, you know, I can feed you to the pigs.
Oh, no.
So a woman named Connie Sandberg dated Coco for 9 years. She met him when she was 16. He was 27. She told the story about how they had broken up once, and she was on a date with a local sheriff, a deputy's son. And when the deputy's son went to pick her up, the Duval brothers showed up and kicked his ass with metal pipes.
Oh, damn. These guys do not mess around.
And nobody did anything about it because everybody was afraid of the Duval brothers.
Well, they sound crazy.
In Monroe,
violent.
They were considered the Monroe Mafia.
What? Okay. I get it.
Connie once told a story of a time when Coco got really shit-faced with Sherm the Worm and JR. They threw him out of the door of the truck, and he landed in the dirt, and he passed out in the dirt. And when he woke up, she was there, and he mumbled something about how he killed someone. And she said, what? And then he said the next day she asked him about it, and he strangled her. So, and warned her, don't ever fucking ask me about it again. And she didn't.
Can't blame her.
JR, he'd been with lots of different women. He was with a woman named Donna, and she was pregnant with his baby. He would later beat her. And then on Labor Day, he dragged her around her mobile home by her hair. So she left him.
Good for her.
Yeah. But before she left him, she overheard him talking to somebody about pigs and people and hunters being missing. And she made a joke about how could you feed someone to a pig? Pigs don't eat skulls.
They don't?
Well, I looked it up. I'll tell you.
Okay.
He beat her up, punched her, and said he was going to feed her to the pigs. So a lot of people were scared. These Duval brothers are talking about pigs, blah, blah, blah. One of the investigators actually reached out in this case to Michigan State University swine expert to find out if it's possible for pigs to actually eat humans. The expert said that you would need 5 or 6 pigs to be hungry for a few days. And then they would probably eat a person in about 3 or 4 days.
Oh, wow.
Unlike what we think about pigs and how they'll just eat anything nonstop, they actually do stop. And he said eventually about 72 hours after eating a human, they would excrete everything that they ate. This investigator, his name was Bronco Lineski. So we have a Bronco vehicle and we have Bronco Lineski. And he is actually the hero of this story. He worked for the state police and on his spare time, because this is a cold case. You have to remember, it's a very cold case. On his spare time, he would investigate the case, asking questions, stirring things up. He would go door to door. And finally, he got a tip from someone who called in and said he needed to talk to a woman named Barb. But he didn't have Barb's address. So he went door to door. Well, I mean, there's 2,000 people.
Right.
It's door to door. Knocking, trying to find Barb. It took some time. But eventually he knocked on a door and said, "Are you Barb?" And the woman cracked it open and said, "You're going to get me killed."
Oh.
And she tried to shut the door, but he kind of put his foot in. And so he came inside. And eventually she began talking to him about what she knew about the hunters. She described what she described ended up later on matching what the Duval brothers shared in 1986 in Wixom, Michigan, at a dinner with the Duval family.
Fine dinner conversation.
And friends. It took 15 years for Barb to come forward officially and discuss what happened. She was too afraid to go on the record. I mean, during that 15 years, one of her dogs got ran over by a Duval brother.
Okay.
Another one was shot in her front yard by a Duval brother. She ran into the Duval brothers once, and they said, "We know your granddaughters, and they're real pretty."
Oh.
In a threatening manner.
Yeah.
There was $100,000 reward out there for information leading to the, finding Brian and David. And Bronco said to Barb, "Oh, there's $100,000," because she's telling him things off the record. And she said, "The money is no good if I'm dead."
Good point.
Mm-hmm. But eventually, after 17 years, she agreed to testify against the Duval brothers.
She was probably scared shitless, right?
And this is what she said in court happened. She was at Linker's bar. She was there with her friend Ronnie Emery, who was celebrating his first legal kill of a buck deer.
Okay.
And just so you know, Ronnie is now dead. He was an alcoholic, and he died by getting so drunk he passed out on the road, and someone ran over his head.
Oh, no.
Barb believes he was murdered, but
we'll never know.
We'll never know. So on the night of the murders, Connie, who was Coco's girlfriend, was dancing at the bar, Linker's. And a tiff began between the Duval brothers and Brian and David. Now, Ronnie, Barb's friend, knew when the Duval brothers are angry, shit's bad. So he called the police. And coincidentally, Barb was dating the police officer. And there's probably two in Mayo, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And he never showed up. He said he didn't want to get involved with the bar fight that night.
The police officer.
So he didn't show up.
Okay. No, it'll sort itself out, right? I guess.
Barb had been drinking a lot that night. She had at least 9 salty dogs.
I don't know what that is, but okay.
I don't know.
Doesn't sound good.
And Bloody Marys.
Oh.
While she was at Linker's, she was sitting on a chair, and there's a payphone next to her. And she overhears JR on the phone speaking with someone saying, "I'm going to need your help." About 45 minutes later, Sherm the worm showed up with someone else. I think it was Rex, but I'm not for sure. They gave Barb a 6-pack of beer and told her she better get the hell out of there. Barb and Ronnie left, and they went back to Barb's house. And it was about a mile away. They sat in Barb's living room, and they drank the beer, and they watched Scarface.
Oh.
On a side note, Barb has watched Scarface over 200 times.
Wow.
Just a side note about Barb.
Wow.
So they're watching this, and they hear some sounds. And Barb opens her kitchen window, and the sounds, you can hear more. And Ronnie says, "Oh, I bet the hunters are getting their ass beat." So the two go out the front door. They want to check it out.
There is nothing to do in this town, so I'm sure watching a fight is interesting, right?
When they go out the front door, there's a strange car there. And I believe it's one of the Duval brothers' cars. It's a car there. And so they go back inside. They go out the back door, and they walk down about a quarter mile down this path, and there's a clearing. When they get to the clearing, they see the Bronco, and its lights are on. And David Till is on his knees being hit with a baseball bat.
Oh, no.
He's trying to stand. He's urinated on himself, and he's crying, "Please, someone help. Please stop." At the same time, you have Brian being held by some men. The next thing Barb sees is Coco swing a bat to David's head, and she described it as exploding or disappearing.
Oh, no. Oh, that's brutal.
And the Duval brothers told many people that they hit a man on the head and his head split like a watermelon. And I'm sorry. This is really gruesome, and it's very upsetting. All this time, Brian is...
Oh, he's watching his best friend.
friend.
Oh, childhood best friend. They've known each other forever.
Since 4th grade.
Oh.
Brian manages to escape.
Oh, he does.
But the Duval brothers caught up with him, dragged him back. They beat him. They beat him even when he wasn't moving anymore. Barb and Ronnie take off down the path, and they go back to Barb's house. About 5 minutes later, there's a knock on their door.
Uh-oh.
It was the Duval brothers, and they said, quote, we know you, we know where you live, and pigs got to eat too.
That is terrifying. Terrifying.
This is fucking horrible.
Yeah, this is...
So the Attorney General's office in 2002 had taken on this case, and I worked there at the time. It was a huge breakthrough, and they decided to go ahead and prosecute, even though they had no body, no DNA, never found the Bronco. They still went ahead and did it.
They just had circumstantial evidence, right?
Based on mostly
testimony.
Barb, basically Barb. Donna Pendergrass was the one that actually prosecuted it, and she's an amazing assistant attorney general. It took the jury only 30 minutes to find them guilty and sentence them to life. So what Donna Pendergrass believes happened is after the murder, the men were put in the Bronco, and then they were put through a wood chipper.
Oh, my God.
And then they were fed to the pigs.
Ugh.
And I did tell you that the brothers were really good at taking apart cars.
Yes.
And had scrap.
That's right.
Scrap yards.
That makes sense that the Bronco disappeared.
And so that is the sad story of David Till and Brian Ogden. Sorry.
That is terrible. A wood chipper? Oh, we do these stories. I mean, we're on episode like 200 and
1 billion.
Yeah, something. And we have almost just as many in our Patreon. And I'm not like, I'm still amazed and shocked and horrified. For what? For flirting?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe being a little obnoxious flirting? Maybe? I mean,
the prosecutors believe that the Duval brothers were very aggressive at first with David and Brian, but then lured them out with marijuana.
Okay.
Because David and Brian had been asking people if you know where any marijuana is. And then the Duval brothers were heard trying to get some marijuana. So they believe that they probably faked being nice and lured them to smoke weed. And that's how they got them there.
I see. That makes a lot of sense.
It's a really sad case. They're still alive and in prison, and a lot of the Duval family is in prison, and even
for other crimes.
And even one of the females is in prison for murder.
Oh. Wow. Crazy. The story is just awful. I'm glad it was solved. I mean,
for the family.
Right. Like, I'm sure,
my heart goes out to the families, because this is just a horrible story. And to have your loved one die that way for nothing, but to just be with the wrong man. And these men got away with telling everybody, hey,
they're just telling everybody for 18 years and
people to pigs.
Yeah. Well, that was horrible. Thanks, Talia.
I want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen to us, listen to the story. If you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe, follow, like button. You can go to our website, crimesandconsequences.com. We have merchandise there. You can join us on Patreon at patreon.com/TNTcrimes or on Apple Podcasts and become members, where we release episodes that aren't on True Crime Daily, and they're ad-free. And what else? I think that's it.
So I think you covered most everything.
So, and I'm sorry for the family.
Yeah.
My heart goes out to them.
Terrible. So until our next episode.
Don't kill each other.
Bye.
Bye.